We all know that you can observe solar eclipses through eclipse glasses that look like this. But did you know there's also a magnitude of other ways you can also observe the sun, both during and outside a partial solar eclipse? So this is a bunch of different ways. We've got 12 methods here, starting with the cheapest to the most expensive, and this works anywhere where you have a partial eclipse. You don't need to be under a total eclipse to see this. So number one, we have eclipse glasses. Fairly simple. You can get these for free probably, or very cheap from local museums, local libraries. You can also buy them online as well. That's item number one. Item number two, as close to free as you can get. You take a piece of paper, a piece of card, you take a needle, you poke a hole through the card, you shine it up to the sun, and the sunbeam that you see through that pinhole reflects or shows you the shape of that crescent sun. So again, a very cheap way, basically free, to observe a partial solar eclipse. Number three, also free, is nature outside. Did you know that if you go outside under a tree during a partial solar eclipse, the shadows cast by the tree from the sunlight will also reflect the shape of the crescent sun as the moon is eating a chunk of the sun up in the sky up above you. This doesn't have to be trees. If you've got long hair, you can use your hair. Again, all these fun ways. And under the same light is a colander. You probably already have these at home in your kitchen, so again, close to free. The sun is coming out as I'm filming this video. How lovely. And as I shine the sunlight through the holes in my colander, the shapes that you see in the shadow will also be the shape of the crescent sun up in the sky up above you. Another way to observe the eclipse, I get asked about this one a lot. Some of you might have one of these at home. If you don't, it's probably not worth going out and getting one. But can you look at the sun safely through a welding mask? The answer is yes, if the shade of your welding mask filter is high enough. So official American Astronomical Society standards is a shade 12 or higher is needed to safely view the sun. I put a shade 12 in this, and to me it was still a little bright, so you might want to use a slightly higher filter than that, or stack your 12 with some sunglasses, but shade 12 is the safety minimum. Okay, down we go along the track. So next up, we have a fun one. Probably not many of you have these lying around unless you're a massive 70s disco fan, but the disco ball. The disco ball is actually excellent for observing partial solar eclipses. Why? Well, similar to the methods we had before, where we cast the shape of the sunlight and the crescent sun, the same thing is true with a disco ball. If you have the sun shining on your disco ball, the sunlight is spread around the room, every tiny reflection of the sun around you is the shape of that partial eclipse. So you can have a room full of partial eclipse shapes around you. So that's another fun one there. This next one, also fairly inexpensive, is to buy solar filter paper. So this sheet of paper here cost me about $20. You could buy bigger rolls, more expensive, but sort of cheaper by the foot. And this is very, very versatile. For example, this is the same material that's used in eclipse glasses. You can look directly through it at the sun. But what I've used in this case is I've taken my camera lens that I already have, and I've created a filter for my camera lens, turning my zoom lens into a lens that I can use to look at the partial solar eclipse. And you can also use filter like this for bigger telescopes as well, if the ISO standard is safe enough. But that's an important note. Make sure before you buy that it's from a verified source and that the ISO standard is safe for looking at the sun through them. Okay, next up is another inexpensive one. Can you see me over here? I think you can. Excellent. Is another inexpensive one, and that is through regular binoculars. So if you have a regular pair of binoculars lying around at home, do not look through those binoculars at the sun. Don't do it. You will severely damage your eyes. But what you can do is turn your binoculars into a projector to project the image of the sun. So all I've done here is take my regular pair of binoculars, I've cable tied them onto a tripod, I have this sort of cardboard shield here to create a bit of a shadow, and all I've done at the bottom is I've taken a laptop stand from Amazon, like $10 or something like that, and I've duct taped a big piece of white card to it, and what we get on a sunny day, which today is not, is you will shine the sunlight through your binoculars and project them onto your cardboard, and you will actually see, this is great not just for partial eclipses where you can see the shape of the crescent moon, you can also see crescent sun, sorry. You can also see sunspots and things like that too. It takes a little bit of time to focus and sort of fine tune that. The sun has just come out, but I've just moved it, so it's not in tune right now. Okay, so moving along again. Next up, we're getting to the space now where we have purposely designed stuff for looking at the sun. We're getting a bit more expensive at this end of the list, but we have solar binoculars. These are different to binoculars that you might use for nighttime observing or for wildlife. These are binoculars that are specifically designed for solar observing. I have a small pair here. I think these are only around $40, and they are safe and built specifically for looking at the sun through these binoculars. And these are great too, because as well as just seeing the sun and the partial eclipse, you can begin to see the large sunspots and even medium-sized sunspots through these as well. I've got a slightly larger pair here as well. These are both Celestrons. This is the mid-size, there's a larger size as well. And I'll put the details of all these methods down in the description too. Okay, next on the list is a bit of a funny one. I made a custom video about these, but this fun little device is called a Sunspotter. And what a Sunspotter does is it takes the sun and bounces it through a bunch of mirrors to project an image of the sun on a piece of paper. These are quite expensive, actually surprisingly expensive, about $500 or so for this. Probably not super useful if you're just a solo observer, but if you're an educator and have large groups of people wanting to look at the sun at once, this is a great way to do that, and you can see both sunspots and the shape of that partial eclipse as well. Okay, next up, we're now near the end of our list now. We're on telescopes. So you might be wondering, why is the big telescope ahead of the smaller telescope here? Well, this is a regular night sky telescope. So some of you might have these at home as well. Just a normal telescope that you use for nighttime observing. Do not look directly through that telescope at the sun as is, okay? But if you already have that telescope, what you can do is either buy or sort of custom make yourself, again, following the appropriate safety precautions. You can buy a solar filter to put at the end of your telescope. This will block out almost all of the light, will make it useless for anything else while this filter is on, but makes it safe for observing the sun. And through this, you can see sunspots in great detail. You will see the partial phases of the eclipse as well. All of these fun things, and of course, the bigger your telescope, the more detail you see on there as well. And again, I've put it this side of the product here on the left, just because you might already have one at home, and in general, it's cheaper to buy a white light telescope and build a filter than it is to go to the last item on our list, which is a dedicated H-alpha solar telescope. So H-alpha, that stands for hydrogen alpha. This is a very specific wavelength of light that is emitted by hydrogen in the sort of lower atmosphere of the sun, a layer called the chromosphere. And if you look through these at the sun, you will see a lot more than you can see in the white light telescopes. You will see sunspots, but you will also see arches of plasma suspended above the edge of the sun. We call these prominences, and you'll see other structures like filaments on the disk of the sun too. These can be expensive. There are two main brands that build these. There's the Coronado and there's the Lunt, but these can range from sort of $1,500 to as expensive as you want, essentially. And of course, the bigger that you buy them, the more expensive that they are too. These are also very fun, as I said, gives a very different view to the white light telescope here. So there we go, that's 12 unique ways to observe the eclipse. A lot of these don't require you to have prepped anything weeks in advance, like getting solar eclipse glasses might do, but hopefully this is useful for observing the partial eclipse whenever you might be watching this video. Thanks for watching.